Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's exciting webinar with the Hong Kong Tourism Board, Instagrammable Hong Kong. I'm Dan McDonald, Sales and Marketing Associate with Baxter Media, and today is Tuesday, September 14th. Be sure to stay signed in for the entire duration of the webinar today to be eligible for prizing, as all participants will have the chance to win one of two $50 gift cards or a $100 gift card during a quiz game that takes place throughout this webinar. Today, you'll get to hear from Linda Ho, Manager of Trade Marketing for the Hong Kong Tourism Board in New York, as well as Yuen Can Wong, Manager of Trade Marketing with the Hong Kong Tourism Board in Toronto, and Michael Lim is joining us as well. You'll also get tips on Instagrammable spots in Hong Kong neighborhoods with Instagram expert Lucan and award-winning time-lapse guru Patrick Chung. As many of you already know, the term Instagrammable refers to locations that are visually appealing in a way that is suitable for being photographed for posting on Instagram. As you'll discover today, this term describes Hong Kong to a T. So just before we get into things, I'd like to let our viewers know that if you have any questions during this webinar, just type them into the Q&A section of the public chat box, which will be towards the right-hand side of this page. And those questions will be answered in a short Q&A session towards the end of this webinar. And remember, this is a live session, so your patience is appreciated during any technical difficulties that might arise. I will now hand things over to Yuen Can Wong with the Hong Kong Tourism Board in Toronto. Welcome, Yuen.
Thanks, Dan. Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. 4 years ago, Hong Kong started promoting neighborhoods for visitors to have an immersive cultural and local experience. We started with Old Town Central, comprising of Central and Sheung Wan. And then in 2018, we launched Sam Shui Po. And last week, we started to introduce West Kowloon. Today, Linda, Michael, and I will be talking about what makes these neighborhoods special to us and suggest our favorite Instagrammable spots in these neighborhoods. So, Linda, tell us, what are your favorite Instagrammable spots?
Hello, thank you, Yuen, and hello, everybody. Well, Hong Kong is my home, and my favorite place is Old Town Central in the Central District. It is full of history and timeless stories. Sample everything from traditional Cantonese tea house to international cuisine. OTC is the melting pot of flavors with something to satisfy all tastes. Dai Pai Dong are outdoor food stores where you can enjoy the authentic local culinary experience. This shot alone shows how Instagrammable OTC really is. If you want a cup of authentic Hong Kong milk tea, Lan Fong Yun is the place to be. The popular beverage was influenced by British culture, but is made with evaporated milk and sugar. At Lan Fong Yun, be sure to try the famous silk stocking milk tea, which is pressed through a fine mash to give it a particularly smooth taste. Having a nightcap at one of the rooftop bars with the panoramic views of the Hong Kong skyline is the best way to end your day. Street art has become an important fiber of Hong Kong's evolving art and cultural scene. Imagine leaving a 100-year-old temple only to encounter the modern contrast of our own brand of vibrant street art. If you are looking for that perfect Instagram background, look no further than the city's colorful street art installations. Now, I will hand it back to Yuen to take you to Sam Shui Po.
Thanks, Linda. Those places sound really amazing, and for me, my favorite is actually the street art. Sam Shui Po is an authentic working-class neighborhood with lots of good eats, local shopping, and cultural vibe. My fave is Tim Ho Wan, arguably the most affordable one-star Michelin dim sum in the world. The food not only tastes fantastic, but looks so good that my camera has to eat it first. And if you want to know more about how Sam Shui Po evolved over the years into what it is today, you have to visit Mei Ho House. Inside, you will discover how people 70 years ago used to live in the housing units and appreciate the neighborhood as it is today. There are just so many Instagram-worthy spots in Sam Shui Po, but I will leave some of that to the experts later on to go through with you. So for now, Michael, how about you? What are your favorite Instagrammable spots?
Thanks, Jen. Again, welcome everyone. There are treasures to be found in every Hong Kong neighborhood. You'll easily find unique Instagrammable photos in each of them. Let me take you through a few highlighted points of interest in West Kowloon, which comprises of Yau Ma Tei, Jordan, and West Kowloon Cultural District. West Kowloon's rich history of creativity in arts and crafts have evolved over the years. We have created 5 thematic itineraries covering 50 points of interest for you to further explore this neighborhood. I would like to share some characteristics with you, starting with Yau Ma Tei, a neighborhood of traditional craftsmanship and historical buildings. Next, Jordan it's famous for its night market, Temple Street, neon-drenched streets, and local eateries. All make great IG shots. In the center of West Kowloon lies the West Kowloon Station, another great opportunity to grab another IG photo. One can even board a train here for the Greater Bay Area. Now, the West Kowloon Cultural District. Ziqi Center is home to Cantonese opera. The front entrance resembles the curtain's opening on a stage. Another great spot for an IG shot. I visited 2 years ago when it was newly opened and personally experienced their tea house theater. I really highly recommend this. Before or after visiting the Ziqi Center, one can take a leisurely stroll along Art Park. Definitely your cameras have them ready to capture a beautiful sunset with Hong Kong Island and Victoria Harbor in the background, along with one of the art exhibits. The M+ Museum will be opening on November 12th. It's the first global museum of contemporary visual culture in Asia, followed by the opening of the Palace Museum next year.
Wow, West Kowloon sounds very exciting. I'd love to check out those parts. Now, let's see what our guest speakers today can teach us about making our Instagram shots really pop. Lucan, over to you, please.
Well, thank you. Hello. My name is Lucan Coots. I'm a digital artist from here in Toronto. You know when you take a look at a photo and it's very heavily edited and you think to yourself, well, that's not really photography anymore. That's what I do, but I take it a step further. You'll see that my work is very vibrant, colorful, high contrast, and it lends itself very well to the city of Hong Kong. So today I'm going to be talking to you about my favorite spots in Hong Kong, my favorite photos that I've taken, how I took them. I'll teach you how you can take portraits under neon light. But most importantly to me, I hope that I inspire you to look at the world around you in a more colorful way, because that's all that I see, even on the most gray of days. The first photo I want to talk about is from Wan Chai during typhoon season. Before I get into this, I want to mention Hollywood movies. If you take a look at a nighttime urban scene in a Hollywood movie, you might notice that the streets are almost always wet. You will almost never see dry roads, dry pavement. That's because this water gives all the lights and all the color a medium to bounce off of, to reflect off of. It makes it more punchy, vibrant. So that's what I like to do, especially in a city like Hong Kong where there's so many lights and colors. So my first tip to taking better photos would be to shoot during or after a rainstorm. I have a weather-sealed camera. I would not recommend going into a rainstorm without one, or at the very least, you can just take a plastic grocery bag, wrap it around your camera, and then keep it protected from the elements. Well, on this photo, you can maybe see some bokeh in the foreground. I like to spray some water into my hands, and I like to just kind of sprinkle it onto my camera lens there. Again, I have a protective filter on my camera lens. I wouldn't recommend doing this to your actual lens. But what that would do is create this effect. It gives a medium, again, for all those lights to kind of spread itself out and make it a bit more colorful. So that's what I've done with this photo here. During the editing process, I do a lot of local adjustments. So global adjustments would be those that affect the entire image. That would be, you change your exposure, you change your contrast, you increase the saturation. All those will change the photo entirely, but local adjustments are those things that isolate those edits to certain parts of the image. I do a lot of the local adjustments. I like to use the radial filter. So in the top left of the photo where there's that street light, I've dragged the radial filter over that. I've enhanced that light. I've dragged radial filters over those magenta neon signs in the background there to bring out those colors. I've used radial filters around the edges and corners of the photo to create a vignette. But most importantly, I've created a lot of radial filters in and around the silhouette area because I want those silhouettes to stand out from the background. When the viewer looks at that photo, I want their eyes to be able to lock onto those human figures effortlessly. The last thing that I want is for the viewer to have to dig those out of the shadows. So those radial filters help me brighten up the background, help me darken the silhouettes, and it creates that tonal contrast. You might notice that in my work, I shoot a lot of silhouettes. There's a few reasons for that. I think it stems back a few years back when somebody told me if I want to spice up my landscapes or my cityscapes, incorporate a human element. So that's what I started doing. I started using silhouettes, and instantly it was like, wow, my photos just became so much better. Because now you've got another layer of storytelling. Before it was just the city itself, but now I've got those silhouettes. I've got how they interact with their environment. I've got their body language. But what I like most is that they're completely anonymous. Could be anybody. Kind of erases that line between, you know, what gender might this person be? What's their race? Like with a silhouette and they're lost in the shadows, it's just a human. I like that a lot. The next photo I've got is from Kowloon Peak. This is my favorite view of Hong Kong. It's very expansive. It looks great during sunset. You've got the entire sky. You've got nothing to obstruct your view. But what I like the most is that, you know, no two sunsets are the same. The sky is your canvas. That's what makes your shot different from anybody else who's been up there. But not just that. When the sun goes down and all those lights come on, all those lights come on. You've got you can see all of downtown Hong Kong. You can see all of the urban sprawl leading up to the mountain there. You could spend an entire lifetime counting each and every one of those city lights, and I don't think you could even count how many they are. So this photo doesn't really showcase those lights. I'll leave that for you to discover, but this is a self-portrait that I've shot with a drone. I'm not up to speed with the drone regulations these days in Hong Kong, so I'm not going to give you any advice, but when I was there a few years back, to the best of my understanding, Hong Kong was much more relaxed than most other cities with their drone laws. So this is a self-portrait. I launched my drone from the top of Kowloon Peak. I flew it behind me, and then I flew it up and down, side to side, until I found that perfect composition, and then I snapped away. Simple as that. The next photo is a self-portrait from Braemar Hill. So while Kowloon Peak might be my favorite view, Braemar Hill is my favorite spot. It's kind of tucked away, you know, it's got a bit of a jungle vibe. It's really cool to, when I see other photographers go to Hong Kong, I don't think they really know about these little hideaways like Braemar Hill. So I love going up here. I've been up there dozens of times, but this is a self-portrait as well. I set my camera up on a tripod on the rocks. Took a handful of test shots to test the exposure, test my framing, the focus, and then once I got that all locked in, I put my camera onto a 10-second self-timer. I press the shutter button, beep, 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 and then you got 10 seconds to run in front and pose. And then you got to stay still for maybe 20 or 30 seconds, or however long your exposure is. The editing process is again, a lot of local adjustments here. I created a nice vignette to draw the viewer's attention closer towards the center. And once again, I used a lot of radial adjustments in and around that silhouette area to once again separate it from the background so that the viewer can spot that no problem. The other thing is that the viewer's eye is most attracted to the brightest parts of the image. So I want that silhouette area to be nice and bright relative to the rest of the image. So that's why I've brightened up the silhouette area. That's why I've created a heavy kind of vignette here. The next photo I've got, this is a bit more of an advanced technique. This is, I can't go too in-depth about this, but if you want to research this on your own time, go onto YouTube, type in how to remove tourists from photos, and it won't take you much effort to find the same techniques that I use. So what I did here was, first of all, I found a view that I liked. I liked that corner store. I liked the neon lights in the background there. And once again, it's a rainy kind of night, so you've got all those colors reflecting off the ground. So I thought this is a great shot. Set my camera up on a tripod, and then over the next 10 to 15 minutes, I just took photos over and over and over again. I took maybe 20 to 30 photos because, as this photo suggests, Hong Kong is very quiet. That's not the case. There were hundreds of people when I was shooting this night, but they're all gone. The thinking there is that people aren't going to stay in one spot for more than 15 minutes. They're going to be moving around, and the more photos that you take, when you load them into Photoshop, Photoshop can kind of fit those broken pieces together, and then it's got what's called a plate shot in cinematography terms. That's called your clean plate, when you've got a photo with nothing else, no distractions, no objects. So set my camera up on a tripod, took photos, 20, 30 photos over 15 minutes. And then after that, I stuck around for a little bit longer, waiting for the right subject to walk through my frame. I ended up seeing these two people with their umbrellas walking through, and I waited for them to walk through. Snap, 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 took a bunch of photos. And then I layered my favorite photo on top of the clean plate. And then I unerased those two silhouettes. And what that creates is a moment where it's just these two in their own little world. There's nobody else. And it's that goes to show you there's more stories to be told in Hong Kong than just the business and the chaos. This next photo, and my last photo here, is called a time slice, also from Braemar Hill, the same spot I showed you earlier. This starts with a time lapse. So again, set your camera up on a tripod, take a bunch of photos. I'm not going to speak too much on the time lapses because you've got a very talented time lapse photographer talking to you very shortly. So I'm going to leave that all to him. But with the time lapse, again, you bring that into Photoshop, stack all those layers on top of each other, and essentially you take a thin strip out of each layer to unerase it. And then you've got this passage of time from daytime on the right side through to the golden hour. You can see the city was much more colorful in the center frame, through twilight, and then into the nighttime when the city lights start to turn on. If you're feeling endeavorous and you'd like to try this for yourself, my only tip for you is to make sure your camera stays dead still through the entire process, because any kind of movement, you bump into your tripod, if the wind moves it, any kind of movement like that can cost you hours, if not scrap your project entirely. Speaking from personal experience here. Well, those are my favorite photos from Hong Kong. Before I leave, I'm going to give you a bit of a tutorial on how to shoot portraits under neon light. So I brought my friend Moo, who I actually explored with in Hong Kong several years back. I've got her here today, and she's going to step in as my model. So I'm going to put her right in front of the neon light. I'm going to position it so that the sign is to her right side. So you can see you've got some color on her cheek, and you've got some natural skin tones over here. But beyond that, you've also got some tonal contrast. You've got the light on her face here, and you've also got more shadows. If we didn't have this light right here, we'd have shadows on her face right there. So the very first thing I want to say is that neon light is very intense. It's very saturated. In fact, your camera doesn't know how to read the scene properly if you leave it to automatic settings. So the first thing you want to do is to set your camera to manual mode and override those settings. That's the M button on your camera. So with that, the first thing you want to do is set our aperture wide open. This is a 2.8 lens, so I'm going to set it to f2.8. That's my widest aperture. That will let in the most amount of available light, because even though this is bright, we are still in a low light environment. So aperture wide open to 2.8. The next thing we do is set our shutter speed. And there's a rule of thumb for this. So whatever your focal length is, this is a 14mm lens. Take your focal length and multiply it by 2. So 14 times 2 would be 28. You want to find the shutter speed closest to 1/28th of a second. So in photography terms, that would be 1/30th. The last step there would be to set your ISO. So there's only 3 settings: aperture, shutter speed, and then your ISO, which is your general light sensitivity. For the ISO, let's just bring that down until our exposure meter on the camera reads that it's 1 stop underexposed. It's best to err on the side of caution in an environment like this because, again, these lights are so bright that once they start to overexpose on your sensor, you can't pull those details back. So to err on the side of caution, you want to darken your shot by 1 stop. So adjust your ISO accordingly. And right before we take the shot, we've got our settings dialed in. We want to make sure that we've got our focus nice and sharp. Modern cameras do have a lot of tools built in to help you get your focus right, but there's a surefire way, which I always use if it's not time sensitive. So in my live view here, so right now I'm looking through the viewfinder, but what I want to do is open up live view so I can see the photo on the back of my camera, just like this. On the back of your camera, there will be a magnifying glass. So you tap that, you zoom all the way in, and now I can see her eyes on my screen. And then I'm able to move my focus back and forth until those eyes are sharp in focus. The reason why you're focusing on the eyes is because when you're looking at me, you're looking at my eyes. It's okay if your nose, your mouth, the ears, it's okay if that's out of focus. You want to make sure that the eyes are sharp in focus. So settings dialed in, focus is nice and sharp. I'm going to get you to run your hand maybe through your hair, just like that. Perfect. And there you go. So as long as you've got your exposure correct, one stop under exposed, as long as you got your exposure correct and your focus sharp, your photos will always turn out. I've just about talked my tongue off. That's all I've got. Thank you for having me. Back to you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Lucan, for those awesome tips. That was great. And thank you to those who have submitted photos to us or to the experts to review beforehand. So Lucan will now take us through a critique of the first two. The first one was submitted by Claire Newell. Over to you, Lucan.
Well, thank you. I've got two photos sent in from you guys. The first one is from Danny. This is of the giant Buddha in Hong Kong. I've been here. It's spectacular. It's really a sight to see. Now I can tell, well, first of all, you've got your composition just right. You've got the Buddha nice and center. You've got those, oh, that's the one we're doing right now, the second one. Pardon me. I have it backwards on my computer here. Well, the second one is of the infamous pirate ship in Victoria Harbor. That's a shot that I could never take. I never got that just right. So you're already a step ahead of me. I think it's a great shot. Again, your composition is great. You've got, I love the Ferris wheel you've got in the background all lit up. I love the skyline. I love all those neon lights of the buildings tucked in right behind those sails. So it's really a great shot. I don't have too many notes for you here, apart from, well, just maybe try changing the angles, you know. My favorite advice that I've got is when you think you've got the right angle, just drop down 1 foot. So, you know, try taking that photo 1 foot lower, 2 feet lower. Just try to get a bit lower, see if that changes anything. Just experiment with different angles. That's really all the advice I have for you on that shot. You did a great job. The next one is from Danny, and this one is of the giant Buddha. Like I said, this is something magnificent in real life. I can tell that you are a bit more of a weekend warrior in photography in the sense that I think you went to this location with the destination first to enjoy yourself first, and then you kind of take photos whenever the opportunity arises. I'm the exact opposite. I go out there for photos first and then enjoy it second, and maybe that's to my fault. But so from the perspective of somebody, let's say that the Hong Kong Tourism Board hired me to take this photo of the Buddha, there's a few things that I would do differently. First, I would try a different time of day. I would try sunset or twilight, because the thing about broad daylight like this is that the sky is very bright. It's honestly overexposed. You don't know if there's any clouds in the sky. It does wash out details of the Buddha as well, unfortunately. Plus, a different time of day might make things a bit more calm. You might have less tourists in your photo because tourists are quite distracting. Again, I've taught you guys there's techniques out there to remove tourists from your photos. So you know that could be very beneficial if you do it during sunset or twilight as well, or even into the nighttime. There will be fewer people, and it will be easier to pull off that technique. The last point that I have for you here is to keep your horizon line nice and straight, because you know that's a mistake that a lot of people a bit less experienced make, is when they're looking through the viewfinder, they're focused. I can tell you're focused just on the Buddha, making sure that Buddha was lined up nice and center, that your horizon line just kind of slipped. So if you straighten that out, I want you to keep that in mind going forward. If you straighten out that horizon line, a lot of your photos will be of higher quality.
Thanks so much, Lucan. That was amazing. And now it's time for part 1 of our quiz game. So just to let everyone know, each participant is allowed to win only once. So if you are the winner of question 1, for example, you will not get to win in the subsequent rounds, even if you are the first to answer the question. It will default to the next fastest person with the correct answer that has not won yet. All right, first up, where did Lucan get his favorite view of Hong Kong? Is it A, Wan Chai, B, Braemar Hill, or C, Kowloon Peak? I'll give you guys a few seconds there just to submit your questions or your answers into the chat box. Okay, let me just go through, sift through some of the answers here. And the correct answer was C, Kowloon Peak. So that was where Lucan got his favorite view of Hong Kong. So from my end, it looks like the first person to get the answer correct was Nancy Zupanchik. Nancy, congratulations. You are the winner of a $50 gift card. That was Nancy. Yeah, you said Kowloon Peak in the chat box there. You were the first one to submit that particular answer, and you were correct. All right. Congratulations, Nancy. And Patrick will now share with us his experience with time-lapse photography and hyperlapse in photographing Hong Kong. All right. Welcome, Patrick.
Hello everyone, I'm Patrick Zhang, a photographer from Hong Kong. It is my pleasure to be here to share with you the beauty of Hong Kong. So first, I will introduce myself. I start as a videographer, shooting since 2012. I then start exploring photography and fell in love with time-lapse and hyperlapse photography. I am a Lucan ambassador and the first place winner of the 2021 US Time-Lapse Film Festival of my Hong Kong video in the Living in the City category. So, I talk about time-lapse. So time-lapse is a photography technique compressing the continuation of time in certain location. Still pictures can only capture one particular moment of the location or moment. I compress several hours of photography into a video last for several seconds. The outcomes astonish me. Another technique is hyperlapse. Hyperlapse is achieved by moving the camera a short distance between each shot. One step, one photo. It has some different from time-lapse, although it also compressed the time, but they take up a longer time period to produce the kind of video. I need to stabilize the clips after filming. If you want to try that with your mobile phone, you can go to App Store and look for some app for help. Of course, so many mobile phones, they got the time-lapse function already. But if you want more settings to adjust, you can download the app. I use the app called Timelapse. You just put how long for shooting time and how fast of the speed, then press start. So easy to use. Hyperlapse, you can download the app called Hyperlapse from Instagram. You open the app, just press start and record. You can adjust the speed after finish shooting. The app will stabilize the clip for you. Now, I would like to take you to some of the neighborhoods in Hong Kong. First part of the time-lapse was shot around Central. Central is a commercial area surrounded by a lot of commercial buildings, a very busy district. Using time-lapse so can capture the transition from sunrise to sunset in the busy city to make it alive. The first part, a location of my camera to set up is IFC, the angle straight to sunrise. I take that shot from 4 a.m. to 8 a.m. All my photo is raw photo, and I use professional time-lapse software to do the post-production. This is the way how I make a good time-lapse. So this one is hyperlapse. One step, one photo, keep shooting. Every shot may be around 300 photo to 400 photo. So you can tell time-lapse is not a long distance moving, but hyperlapse, the difference between that two, the distance long. In the other part of the clip was shot in Sum Sui Po, Mong Kok and Temple Street in Yau Ma Tei. Other than commercial and city views, Hong Kong has a lot of old-fashioned streets and markets, which are worth visiting as well. For example, markets in Sum Sui Po. They are all built under little colorful tents, selling daily essential and clothing. The other market is in Mong Kok, which is one of the most visited wet market in Hong Kong. All these are places that you can feel and learn more of the local culture. The last one you just saw is Temple Street Market. The Temple Street Market opens around dawn, opens till midnight, and that's Hong Kong Light Market. Attracts a lot of people visiting. Yes, here is Temple Street. So I will show you this video. I saw that in West Kowloon Culture District. Here is a place full of modern culture. It brings a huge contrast with the older district. The first part of the clip is CG Center, which means Chinese opera in English. It is a place and architecture combine Chinese culture and modern arts. These Instagrammable locations I mentioned are very close to each other and can be reached by public transportations. It will maximize your time exploring. Yeah, you see it right now is CG Center. So here is Kowloon Peak too, like Lucan mentioned that. Here is a good view to see everything of Hong Kong. So this is a time-lapse video of the 3 videos which I show you. Although we are unable to visit Hong Kong now, we can still travel to Hong Kong through the camera lenses. Okay, I hope everyone like it. Now I would like to take you to 3 of the best locations in Hong Kong Instagram photos. Here is my favorite location. Okay, I turn on my camera first. Here's my favorite location. Sai Kung Country Park in Sai Kung. The area of the country park is huge, and you will be able to hike along the mountain trail around the High Island Festival. So next photo, I will pay attention to 4 elements before taking photos: lighting, composition, foreground, and background. Lighting is an important element for taking photo, especially the side lights. So next one is the sunset moment. The best timing and lighting for taking photos is around sunset moment and around sunrise moment. Yeah, I like the light a lot too. I like that 2 important moments. So the next one, if you want to see some cityscape, you can choose to go to Kowloon Peak, located in Pengsan, like Lucan. Like that place too because it's so amazing at the night time, which is very close to the city. I love spending time shooting during sunset till night time around this area because you will see more and more lights gradually switching on the buildings. I like cloudy sky more than clean sky. Of course, not at night time because I need to shoot the star at night time too. So I don't want nighttime with clouds, but I like daytime with clouds too. So the next one, the last location I want to share is called Pengsan. This is located in Choi Hong, Kowloon. Pengsan is not a popular shooting spot, but this angle sees more layers of Hong Kong, from the furthest business area to the nearest residential area, also capturing the Lion Rock Mountain, the mountain which represents Hong Kong the most. It is not too difficult to climb this mountain to get to this level. Only 200 stairs you can stay in this level and see everything. Okay, I hope everyone enjoyed for my sharing today.
Thanks so much, Patrick, for sharing those
Thank you.
excellent techniques with us. I'm definitely looking forward to trying those out. And now Patrick will critique 2 photos that were submitted by our participants.
Okay.
Over to you, Patrick.
The first one, yeah. This is a great angle for this temple, yeah. But the weather is not really good. That means lighting is not really good too. Actually, from my opinion, you can put more effort to composition. You can try one technique called Symmetrical Composition. Make horizontal symmetry for this photo. First, you can move to the left more and let the walking path exactly in the middle of the photo. That is a leading line to leading audience eyes to the main door of the temple. And you see this temple left and right is exactly the same light balance. They will make audience eyes comfortable. And also, I like the cropping is 16 to 9 because 2 things disturb my eyes too. The top left got 1 lamp post and the top right got the buildings. Those will disturb my eyes too. So when you stand in the middle and you can try to leading down a little bit, try to move the camera angle lower and cut out the lampposts and buildings. In here, I can share one technique too. One simple composition technique I want is called rule of verbs. The rule of verbs is one of the most powerful techniques to help you position different elements in the photo. Most modern smartphone camera now can overlay the lines over the screen before taking a photo. These are reviewed as either grids or grid lines, and they do not appear on the photo. Yeah, this photo, my opinion is like that.
Excellent. Thanks, Patrick. That photo was submitted by Marius Karstensen of Cathay Pacific Airways. Thanks, Marius, for your contribution. And next up, we have a photo submitted by Janet from Avanti Destinations. I'll skip over to that one.
Okay. Yeah, we talk about this one. Actually, I really like this photo too because the lighting is good. Here is, I think it's a lion pavilion in Peak. I like the lighting, the background, the clouds so nice too. That's why I like the clouds too, because the light go through to the clouds and shine to the buildings. The lighting is nice. For my opinion, you can move backward a little bit and capture more of the lion body, because the lion body cut out a lot and cannot tell really like the lion look at the city. So you can use rule of verbs technique to help you position lion in the photo. Make audience look at the lion first, and then follow the lion facing direction to the Victoria Harbour. The rule of verbs is one of the powerful techniques too. So you can try to use that. And that is, I hope everyone like my opinions too. But I like this photo a lot too because the background and lighting is good. So thank you, Dan.
Thanks so much, Patrick. I agree. Those are great photos. And now I believe we're going to move on to the next quiz question. Okay, so if you guys are ready, I'll get that started now. And remember, submit your answers to the chat box. Question number 2 is, can you name one of Patrick's recommended locations to take awesome Instagram photos? Is it A, Victoria Peak, B, Sai Kung, or C, the Big Buddha, Lantau Island?
I mentioned that twice already.
That's right. Most people are indeed getting the right answer. So now that a few seconds have gone by, I'm going to go and see who was the very first person to submit the correct answer to the chat box. So the answer was indeed B, Sai Kung. And the first person to submit that answer was Eddie Chang. Eddie, congratulations. You are the winner of a $50 gift card. Way to go. You'll be contacted later this week. And congratulations. So we have time now for some Q&A with our guest speakers. And I see that some questions have indeed been submitted to the Q&A tab, which is great. The first couple questions look like they're for Lucan. Lucan, are there any specific phone apps that you would suggest for photo editing for Instagram?
A lot of creative professionals tend to recommend Adobe apps. So Adobe's got Lightroom and Photoshop both on mobile. You might need a subscription for that. So my favorite free app is called Snapseed. It's incredibly powerful. I use that as the finishing touches to all of my photos before uploading. And maybe this would make me less popular if other professionals heard me say this, but I like an app called Mextures. Kind of like the word mixture, but just with an E, Mextures. There's a lot of preset kind of overlays. You can get some really creative kind of stuff with it. I love playing around with it from time to time. It's even as the most mundane iPhone shots run through Mextures can look quite interesting.
Thanks, Lucan. And Spencer asks, this is also for you. At Lucan, do you have a favorite neon sign in Hong Kong? Likewise, do you have a favorite neon sign in Toronto or in general? Thanks.
I do have a favorite sign. That's a great question, by the way. So my favorite neon sign, I had to ask my friend Moo here. I had to ask what it was because I took a photo of her in front of it. So I'll have to show you on my phone here. This is in Prince Edward. Oh, no, I lost it on my phone. It's a sign in Prince Edward. She thinks it was called Bound Restaurant. There's a giant sign on street level. I had to ask people on Reddit, on the Hong Kong subreddit, what it translated to. Hold on here. I think it translated roughly something to eternal beauty and nothing can compare. Of course, I can't speak or read the language, but that's my favorite sign in Hong Kong. It's nice and big. It's right on street level. It's very colorful. My favorite sign, can you see that? My favorite sign here in Toronto, unfortunately, neon's been disappearing quite fast off the streets of Toronto in favor of LED lights, which are more energy efficient. There's a few lights still left over in Chinatown. So there's a restaurant with a big lobster kind of multicolored neon sign. That's my favorite one here. If the studio counts, I'd have to say I like this neon demon sign actually right beside us. I'm the manager of this studio, and this was custom made for us. I love. So this is raw argon, I believe. This is raw neon. That's what they look like in their natural form. So that's why I like this sign. It's always fun to point that out to people who come through here.
That's awesome. Thanks, Lucan. And this next question, this could apply to either Lucan or Patrick. So Marianne was asking, can some of these techniques be done with an iPhone?
So time-lapse and hyperlapse?
Yeah, she didn't specify which technique, but she didn't say who the question was addressed to, but I suppose it could apply to your techniques as well.
Yeah, like I mentioned before, telephone can do the time-lapse so easy because you don't need to care everything. You just press the start and finish. So yeah, the telephone with the app is better. So you can download the app for that too.
That's great. Thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
I'll answer that question too. The techniques that I've spoken on, yes, they can be done on iPhones. My particular iPhone doesn't have, I don't have the most updated high-tech iPhone. So I don't have manual settings on my phone. There are iPhones that shoot RAW mode, so that's uncompressed photos. They have manual settings as well. There's plenty of apps out there. Like today's phones have become so incredibly powerful that sometimes I look at a photo taken with a phone and I don't even realize it's taken with a phone until I read the caption. I'm like, wow. Computational photography has come a long way. Low light photography as well. There's a company called Oppo that I worked with a few years back. They had a fantastic low light camera. So a lot of techniques that I spoke on, they absolutely can be done with phones.
Amazing. Thanks, Lucan. And we had a couple of questions in the chat that were answered through the chat already. So Jean had asked, where is Kowloon Peak exactly? And Linda answered that one. She answered that it was Kowloon Peak is a mountain in the northeast corner of Kowloon. And that question, that question was asked a couple times. Yeah, thanks, Linda. And I had someone ask about, I had a late joiner just ask about, did I miss anything interesting in the beginning? Yes, I would say you definitely did. So what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be sending the recording of this webinar out to everyone tomorrow afternoon. So at the very latest by the afternoon Eastern time zone tomorrow, you will all be getting the recording of this webinar. And Holly asks, what's a small portable camera that I could use instead of my large Nikon D40?
You can choose Z6, Lucan, or Z7. Really smaller.
Oh yeah, was it the SAT7?
Yeah, or Z6.
Nice, thanks, Patrick.
Yeah.
And here we go. Spencer has a question for Patrick. He asks, when taking a hyperlapse, how much time do you have between each shot? It takes some time to step forward and reposition, yes, but the final video looks so seamless.
Actually, we call that is an interval. So when I pick up my tripod and move to the next step, put down my tripod, balance my camera, and take photo, this timing is around 10 seconds to 15 seconds. Depends how fast I can do. So every shot in hyperlapse, you don't need to control your interval time exactly the same. You can you don't need the timer, don't need everything. You just move one step and keep balance, taking picture. If you do 100 times like this, you got the FH timing for move every step already. So around 10 to 13 is my maximum. I cannot doing faster than that seconds too.
Okay, that's really great to know. That's so interesting. Thanks,
Yeah.
Patrick. And we have time for one more question here. So this question is for Lucan. Diane asks, do you have any tips for shooting street art murals?
So I'm assuming that this is referring to those paintings that they're littered on the. Well, litter is not the right word. They're all over the streets of Toronto and Hong Kong as well. So if you're talking about those, I would say they've been painted by an artist, and that artist has been very deliberate with what they've done. So I would say you'd want to lean more towards a documentary kind of approach to keep the colors as is. If you step in front of it and you take photos, then that's a different story. But whenever I'm shooting somebody else's work, I like to keep things the way that they've intended to.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah, thanks, Lucan. Yeah, thank you so much, Lucan, Patrick, and thank you, Linda, as well. That was great. That wraps up the Q&A. So what we're going to do now is dive into our third and final quiz question of the day. So this is for the $100 gift card. So if you guys are ready, I'm going to bring that up on the screen now. When is M+, the first global museum of contemporary visual culture in Asia, scheduled to open? Is it A, 12th of November, B, 13th of November, or C, the 14th of November? A bunch of people are having the correct answer there. That's great. Okay, great. Thanks, guys. I'll close that off now, and we will determine who was the very first person. Submit the correct answer. Correct answer, as most of you saw, was A, the 12th of November. And the very first person to submit the answer of A was William Tang. William, congratulations. You have won the $100 gift card. That is awesome. Way to go. And thank you all for playing with us today. And congratulations to all three winners. So we'll be in touch with you later this week to arrange for the prizes to be sent to you. Now let me turn you back to Yuen for the closing.
Thanks, Dan. It's been fun providing a glimpse of how Instagrammable Hong Kong really is. There are just so many opportunities to take and share amazing shots of Hong Kong in the various neighborhoods and in the vast outdoors. We hope you have learned some new tricks and techniques from our special guests today, Lucan and Patrick. Special thanks to them both for joining us to share their expertise and experience. And a shout out to Patrick for staying beyond his bedtime in Hong Kong to join us for this event.
Yeah.
So thank you all very much once again for joining us. Please feel free to get in touch with us if you have any questions, and have a great day.
Thank you so much, Yuen and everybody. And I want to thank all the travel professionals that attended this webinar today. We really appreciate you taking time out of your day to be here. And as I mentioned earlier, if you happen to miss part of today's webinar, the recording will be made available tomorrow on the Baxter Media YouTube channel. So if you go on YouTube and search for Baxter Media, just look for our blue and white logo. And I'll also be emailing it to everyone that registered. So not just the people that attended, but the people that registered but couldn't attend the live webinar. And yeah, in the meantime, I'd like to give a huge thank you to Yuen Can Wong, Michael Lim, Linda Ho, Lucan Kutz, and Patrick Chung. Thank you all so much for joining us virtually today.
Thank you.
Take care, everyone. Bye-bye.